Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurs Inner Game podcast. Today, I am very, very blessed to have a wonderful guest on our show. He's a friend of mine, and I know you're going to really, really enjoy listening to everything he's going to share about mindset in the entrepreneurial world. He is Rob Brown, and he has spent most of his career in the financial services industry as a top producing advisor, as well as in several senior leadership roles. Now, as a business coach, Rob helps his clients achieve excellence while living more purpose filled lives. He's an author, a devoted husband and father, and a lifelong Cleveland Indians fan. Wonderful to have you on this show, Rob, and a very, very warm welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Nee. It's great to be with you again. I always enjoy our conversations.
And I can't wait to dig into mindset and how it applies to the entrepreneur and the difference it makes. But let's start with your own personal story. How have you come to have the success that you have?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. I think that the two things that have guided me the most are number one, my faith in God. I know that God is my path, is on my path, and He's right beside me. So it's really important to keep Him involved in everything that I do. And I think maybe the first way that I do that is to really try to stay focused on an end goal, something that I'm really trying to accomplish. And as I'm doing that, not allow those other things that come along the way to get in my way, because we live in a world where there are just lots of distractions, and I try to avoid distractions. And I'm not perfect at it. Don't get me wrong. I could wander down a rabbit hole, after we finish this call. But I just try to stay focused and stay present, and know that because of my relationship with God, that I have a purpose in what I do.
Right. And we both coach financial advisors, and we know how easy it is for us all entrepreneurs to get distracted and go down rabbit holes regularly. So did you used to go down rabbit holes, or were you the sort of person who was able to stay focused?
Um, I've gone down lots of rabbit holes over the years, and in fact, that's kind of how I got started in the coaching business. Is that I learned early in my business life, when I was not an entrepreneur, was working for other bigger companies, that I didn't like doing the same job all of the time. I was a very successful financial advisor, and I loved taking care of my clients. But to get more successful as a financial advisor, it meant to me at that time serving more clients and kind of doing more of the same things. And I had an interest in mentoring other people, because I was one of the people in the firm that was always called on to help with trainings or give talks, because management wanted um, other people to learn the things that I was doing. And so I was always that kind of battling between those two things. That's what led me into a stint in management and kind of climbing the ranks, being a manager, but also being an advisor at the same time. And even though it was the same industry and the same firm, they pulled in different ways, and at different times I wanted to be more of one and less of the other. And that's how I settled on being a coach. I said, the thing I enjoyed most in my management role was actually helping other advisors, helping them have stronger, better businesses. So I ended up giving up my management role, starting my coaching business, and eventually giving up my financial advisory practice and focusing just on the coaching and consulting work that I do today. So I think that answers your question, because I think it's easy to get distracted. It's easy not to see that path.
And when did you first become aware of it? Because it's easy to keep repeating the same behavior and not realize that you're repeating that same behavior, and you keep self sabotaging again and again. So, when did you first think, hang on a minute, I'm not focusing on things, I'm starting things and maybe not finishing them off, and I'm then going on to something else? When did that hit you?
You know, it hit me kind of at a strange time. I was uh, I was in a position where I was being recognized for being one of the top advisors in the firm. And I was also um, uh, having success in the other activities that I was engaged in the coaching and mentoring, but it wasn't like a formal role. And but when I really sat back and thought about which of those things I enjoyed most, it was the thing that I wasn't focused on. So it was kind of in the middle of this success in one area where I was really enjoying this other thing that I was doing and feeling like I was making a bigger difference. And at that point I said, I need to decide how I'm going to play this out, that I can't just um, tell myself that it's okay to kind of live in both worlds, because I just didn't feel like I give either one of those responsibilities the attention it deserved.
And so tell us the big secret, Rob. How do you stop yourself chasing the shiny object? How do you stay focused, and how do you complete tasks, get it done before you move on to the next one?
Right. So, that's really been another kind of benefit to starting my coaching business, because I was actually able to take those things that I was doing to be successful as an advisor and start to kind of document them and say, what were my processes? What were the things that I learned over the years and implemented that allowed me to grow my business? And that in turn allowed me to create the game plan, or the framework that I use now in my coaching business, which is very much around first understanding, or trying to gain understanding of what a person's biggest dreams are. What is it they really want to accomplish, looking well out into the future, and then talking about how to break that back down into pieces. So what will that look like in a few years? What will that look like in the end of this year? And then what do we need to do this quarter? We do um, three-month sprints each year. So what we do in each sprint to um, kind of eliminate distractions and focus on the things that are most important today, so that we know that we're working towards that 1 year goal, that 3 year goal, and that big dream that's out there into the future.
Yeah.
And I try to do that myself.
Yeah. But we all know, even that with the best laid plans and the best strategy in front of us and being told exactly what we need to do, it's still easy to say, I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow, make excuses, because there's a level of resistance sometimes, isn't there? And that resistance, that from in my working with hundreds of entrepreneurs, what I've come to find is the resistance isn't the surface level stuff. It is what lies below that. And it's the belief system, isn't it, that stops people from having everything they want. So it's always ourselves holding ourselves back. It's never the strategy or the list of things to do or anything that's sitting on the desk. It's something within us that is fighting being more successful. And do you believe it's a fear of success? I mean, it's a combination of different things, isn't it? But do you believe that's one of the things that some people are scared of being more successful?
Oh, I think that is absolutely the case, especially when you're working with people who are high achievers already. They're really good at what they do. They've reached a level of success that they appreciate, but maybe don't believe they deserve. So thinking about going to another level of success, even though they believe that's the next step, can be hard if they don't truly believe it. And I think it's part of that, having to believe in yourself and that you're worthy and that you have purpose, and the work you're doing is really important to the people that you serve, and also having a belief in that big dream that you have for the future. And if those tie together, then the success is going to come. So why wouldn't you believe in success? And I say that like you could click your fingers and make that happen, right now. It doesn't always work that way.
And how have you nurtured that within yourself, that feeling of worthiness and knowing you can, step up to the next level?
I've really tried to do it through my daily routines of prayer and focusing on um, really trying to live a life the way that God wants me to live that life. and knowing that no matter what we do, um, he's called us into what we're doing. And I think for me, that's the big secret. So I try to pray every day and think about every day that purpose I have, and think about the calls I'm going to be having with my clients, or the meetings I'm going to be having with a prospective client, and just trying to put those in light of serving them as well as I possibly can, based on what I believe I'm gifted at and called to do.
Yeah, the daily practice. I call it daily mindset practice, and it's something that I teach all my clients, and I do it myself, and it's been transformational.
Oh, totally. I think everybody needs to have some daily routine. I don't think there's a magic answer for everybody. For some people it's the morning routine. For some people it's the way they settle at the end of the day, or a combination of those things. But having some way to get back to where you need to be, because you need to be present. You can't, and maybe as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, well, maybe that is one of the other real core parts of that self belief, that believing in success and worthiness, is to be present, is to not allow those distractions and things that can get in the way of that to interrupt you in your now. And because now is the thing that you have the most control over. You can't go back and redo something, and you can't you know do something for specifically that's going to have future effect, unless you are taking care of what you're supposed to be doing right now.
Yes, the power of now is obviously huge. It's a key part, isn't it? And it's often a part that we overlook because we're so distracted by the future and worrying about, what's happened in the past, that we're hardly ever in the present moment. So when you feel distracted and you're sitting down to an activity, for example, and your mind is distracted, is not focused, or you're feeling that resistance to doing what's in front of you, how do you challenge yourself in that moment, and how do you stay on track?
Something I've been doing recently that's really working well, and I think the total answer is I've done many different things over the years, and sometimes they stop working, and so I have to find a new
Yes.
a new trick or a new routine. But right now, it's breathing. I read a great book called Breath. It was written a few
Oh,
years ago,
yes.
and just talks about the importance of breathing to our overall health. Um, but it also talks about some of the real value of just having a good breathing routine, and just stopping and breathing into a 5 count, holding it for a 3 count, and breathing out to a 5 count, and just doing that several times, and just letting that kind of get some balance back. I'm sure as I do that, there's some prayer involved in that too. But I think that helps me more than anything right now. And then I can go back and look at the things that I'd set out to do in that day and say, I didn't plan to do these things because they weren't important. So why don't I just go back and do what I said was important, as I plan my day?
Yes, and the breath work, I agree with you, is it's available to everyone. And again, it's
Right.
one of those wonderful practices that we just overlook because we could be searching for something more complicated or more
Mhm.
difficult, but actually the breath is available to us obviously all the time, if and we can utilize it in a very powerful way. And it brings us back into the present moment, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, because when you're concentrating on breathing, which is something that we take for granted because we do it so many times throughout the day without thinking, and it just causes you to think about your breathing. And as I was mentioning that book, I remember reading the book just a couple of months ago, and it was a reminder of something that I had done in the past. It was kind of a new take on breath work. Breath work is something that I've done many times over the years. But again, it's easy to let that slip away.
And it's lovely to have the reminders, isn't it?
It is
And the reminders pop up whenever we need them.
for sure, for sure. They just have a way of I think if you do have real belief in what you're doing and where you're headed, and you're concentrating on that, I think I think those reminders, whether it's people coming into your life or an activity like breathwork coming there, they happen, because I think the more you believe in what you're doing and that path that you've picked out for your success, um, things have a way of showing up.
Absolutely, at the right time. I'd love to hear more about being on purpose, because this is being motivated in business. I find, and you may have found as well working with clients, can be one of the building blocks of having a business that you love. It's the motivation, isn't it? It's pulling forward even when things feel difficult. So, what does it mean for you staying on purpose, and how do you maintain that?
Um, so for me, staying on purpose is really focusing on that big dream that I have, that picture that I have of what my life will look like well out into the future, and believing that if I live out that dream, I will have the impact, less importantly on my life, but more importantly on the lives of people around me, whether it's the clients I serve or the causes that I care about, or my relationship with God. It's just really thinking about those big things, and just saying, if I do this, and I've used the word called several times, if I do what I really feel like I'm called to do, I'll succeed with that purpose, and my business will be more than just the money that I make. It'll be a real magnification of that purpose that I have. It's just one element of what I'm about.
Wonderful. And do you have a visual representation of your big dream, or do you carry it in your head? Do you spend some time thinking about it? How do you keep in touch with it in a deep way?
Um, the deepest way is in my head, but I've documented it. I have a planning tool I call it impact planning that I use with my clients. The very first section of it is the big dream, and what I like my clients to do is kind of just jot out what they think that big dream is, and then be able to go back to it regularly as we're talking about other things, or there's a distraction out there, and we're wondering, will this distraction help serve that big dream, or will this distraction take us away from that big dream? And I like to have that up there. And it all came from, it's a funny story. When I was a financial advisor, I have a client that, for illustration purposes, I now call him Mr. Big. I mean, he was like my biggest client, but Mr. Big could be a big jerk. He was a busy businessman, had great success in his career. Most of the time, he let me do what he was paying me to do. But every once in a while, there'd be a little bit of a slowdown in his business, and he'd start pulling his stuff together, and he'd call my assistant and chew her out, saying that we weren't doing something that we were supposed to be doing, and to let me know, and I needed to call him. And that happened for years and years and years, and I just let it happen because he was Mr. Big. I couldn't afford to lose Mr. Big. But then one day I was in his office, and he let me have it, and worse than ever before. And I'd probably been working with him 10 years. Uh, and he let me have it, and I stopped. And for the first time, and the relationship was so um, hierarchical that I didn't even call him by his first name. I called him Mister. and so at that moment, the first time ever, I stopped him and said, "Stop!" And I called him by his first name, and I said, uh, "Mac." I said, "Mac, that's enough." I said, "What is the single most important thing you told me that you want to accomplish through the work that we're doing together?" He goes, "What do you mean by that? I have no idea what you're talking about." And I pulled up a piece of paper that I used every time I did planning with him, which stated his single biggest objective for our relationship was for him to be able to leave his business and retire with exactly the same amount of income that he had at the time that he left his work, and be able to do that forever. And so I read that to him, and he goes, I don't remember saying that. I said, yes, you said that several times, what it is you really want to do. And he was just got kind of huffy and puffy and pretty much marched me out of his office. And I thought, wow, I've really screwed this thing up. And the next day I get a phone call from Mr. Big, and Mr. Big says, Rob, I apologize. That is exactly what I want to accomplish. And nothing that I said or complained about has anything to do with that. And thank you for keeping me on track. And so that was a perfect example of this highly successful person distracted by the busyness of his life, losing focus on one aspect of his life, which was important to him. He wasn't, accumulating wealth for no purpose, but he had that purpose that he totally lost sight of it. He was worried about a down market, and it's like, no, that doesn't matter. What matters is your plan on track to get you to where you want to go? Are you still able to accomplish one element of your big dream, which for him was to retire at any time with a specific amount of income?
That is such a great story to illustrate how we can get off track and how it's so helpful for someone to say, actually, this is what you said you want, because we keep losing sight of it in day-to-day life. How often do we sit down and think, oh, I really want this, because we get so distracted by the day and we're chasing the day, and we get to the end of the day and think, I didn't really accomplish much, or I didn't stay on track on my goals today. So just to be able to tune in every day with your desires and what you truly want, whether it's visually, whether it's mentally, or whichever way you're doing it, is makes such a big difference to how we live our lives and the purpose that we bring to everything we do.
Right. It's, as you were talking about the way that we see that, I was actually thinking about a current client of mine who keeps his big dreams in his closet, and which sounds really funny, but he literally has like a big closet that he dresses in every day. And on the wall in that closet is the picture of, or not the picture, the sheet of paper that has his big dreams and what he's working on. He's constantly thinking about it because he wants to start every day as he's getting ready for work, remembering why he is doing that. And it's not just about his business. It's about remembering his family and the obligations and the things he wants to do as he's raising his young children. And it's just fascinating to talk to him and watch when he does stray, how easy it is for him to get back on track, because he can go back to that visualization. I mean, a literal visualization, a sheet of paper that he keeps in his closet.
Yeah, that reminds me of someone, a financial advisor I've interviewed on this podcast. And what he does is he has his goals pinned to his shower screen. And so every morning as he's showering, he's looking at his goals, reminding himself why he's here, what he wants to achieve. And he said it's just a fantastic way to imprint the subconscious with this desire. Otherwise, it's so easy to keep forgetting it and getting lost. So if there's one thing that our listeners and viewers can take away today, please, please, please find what you truly want and put it some way so you can see it every single day, or remind yourself to think about it every single day. It will make a huge difference to your business and to your lives, and I believe to your level of happiness as well and fulfillment.
Oh, I think that's true, because I think it was Norman Vincent Peale that talks about stamping indelibly on your mind a picture of what success looks like, and it will have a way of happening. And
absolutely.
And I think that is really important. But I love what you just said, though. If you don't take anything else away from this conversation, that's what we were just talking about, that creating and then seeing that mental picture or that visual tool every day is a great action item.
Brilliant. Well, we cover that one well, I think. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, one of my favorite questions to ask my guests on this podcast, because I'm really, really big on resilience. Because as entrepreneurs, we get knocked down many times. And sometimes the best laid plans don't work out exactly as we want. And it's very easy, isn't it, if something doesn't work out, to start the or to restart the narrative of it's not going to work, and I'm not good enough to do this, and what's the point, and all of that negative talk, which can knock us back for days, even weeks. So when you encounter a setback, how do you get over it? How do you pick yourself up and get going again without wasting too much time in terms of energy and, thinking about it and brooding on it?
Um, well, first of all, it's never easy, and I'm not sure it's ever exactly the same. But one of the things that I try to do is I try to reflect on um, self-belief statements, the things that I really believe about myself and why what I'm doing is so important. So I really like to kind of go back and say, I believe that I do what I do because I'm very good at helping other people achieve peak performance. I believe that what I do is really important because this is the place that God has put me in this world to help serve others. And just by reflecting and repeating those self-belief statements, I think that can help me bounce back. But it's not always fast. I was on Saturday. I volunteer in a prison ministry, and we were doing our training, and I was asked to give a talk. We have a series of talks that are somewhat scripted, but we have to add our own life story into them to make the story really meaningful as we deliver it. And I was just informed at the very, very last moment that this was the talk that I would be giving the next time that I go into the prison, and I was supposed to practice it in front of a group. And I was like, I didn't know. And so fortunately, I had my phone with me and I had my files in Dropbox app, and I was able to find that talk because I'd actually given it before, but I wasn't remembering it. And as I was giving the talk, in the talk was a story about a time that I was really knocked back in a way that set me that put me off track for months. And it related more to my faith than to my business. And it distanced me from God, which is something that is so important. But um, as I was telling the story in the talk, and it reflects on what happened in life, it was that repeated um, uh, those those repeated belief statements that I had about the way that I was living out, no matter what was happening, uh, um, was the thing that was going to put me back where I needed to be. And it took months, but it still did it. And so most times it's something I think that I'm able to bounce back more quickly from. After a bad day, I'm okay the next day, or after a bad week, I'm okay the next week. But sometimes it can be longer. But going back and just reflecting on how valuable you are and how valuable are to the people that you serve, and to the causes that you care about, and to your family, and to what you're trying to accomplish in your business. I think that can really help with the resilience question.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And do you have these resilience beliefs written down somewhere, or do you just pull them out of your head whenever you need them?
They're written down, but at this point, most of them are something that I remember. Probably harder to repeat out loud because there are things that I tell myself, but I write them down because I think it's really important. In some of the work that I do, one of the coaching lessons is having people go through an exercise for writing self-belief statements, kind of writing one at a time, living it for a period of time, and then going back in and writing another one, and kind of giving yourself an arsenal of belief statements that you can go to in those times where you're questioning what you're doing because something unexpected got in your way.
Yes, that's one thing that's guaranteed in life. We will have curveballs all the time, and it's just something we have to get used to. And it's never the curveball that's the problem. It's always how we react to it and how we see that curveball.
For sure.
Great. Thank you. That's been so, I could talk for ages on this subject. So I love talking about procrastination and how we resist taking action as entrepreneurs. It's such a meaty subject. But as we have to wrap up the call, how can our listeners find out more about you and the amazing work you do?
The best way to do it is just to go to truestfan.com/free. And on that page, there's a checklist that I've created that is derived from the 7 principles of the Truest Fan book that I wrote, that include exercises like the self belief exercise. But there's a series of exercises there, and it's free. You can download it. And then if you're interested in exploring further about the other things that I do, you'll be on my website. So it'll be easy to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rob. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And I would encourage everyone to check out his free gift. Go to his website, explore, because he does amazing work with his clients. Thank you for joining us. We really enjoyed your company. Until next time, bye-bye for now.